you know, is when I worked.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Was your husband drafted, or did he volunteer into the military
He was
service?
drafted.
He was drafted. And did you do any military service?
Mm-mm.
No. Okay.
Well, now you see, we here in the country, we were still in the kind of, stay back, pull back way, whatever you, yeah.
So what do you do, did you do during your off time from work, when you didn't have anything else to do?
Wash, iron, clean house. I did it all, honey. And on Sunday we'd go see Papa and Nana.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But it was fun.
Yeah. Did you do any knitting or riding
I
bikes?
sewed. I sewed a lot.
Sewed a lot.
I sewed a lot. Well, I was a piece good buyer. I had to.
Did you make your own clothes?
Some.
Mm-hmm.
Some. But that was kind of meticulous, and I'm a meticulous person. I had a friend
Mm-hmm.
that sewed for me.
Okay. Okay. So tell me about living in Rain in the 40s. Do you remember?
Mm-hmm.
How was that with the war?
I'm going to ask you this question first. Just what you
What
talk
was
about.
the feeling like during the war? Was it like everyone anxiety and tension? Were people nervous?
Excited,
Mm-hmm.
I would say, because we all knew each other almost. You know, of course, I was from the country, but the country, which is about 4 miles down the road, but it was country then, you
Right.
know. And we came to town on Saturday night, and they would block from Mervyn Collins,
Mm-hmm.
about 2 or 3 blocks down on all ways, you know. And people would talk. I mean, it was like, have you ever been to a bazaar or nothing like that? Oh yeah, people walked around, honey, and a lot of them had beer in their hand, but they more or less, it was just visit.
Mm-hmm.
They came and do their shopping on Saturday afternoon, Saturday night. The street was blocked.
So you had to come and walk, you had to park and walk?
The park and walk.
Oh, wow.
And the theater was about 3 blocks down, and you had to park to go to the theater, unless you would go way past it and come back and still park about 3 or 4 blocks from the theater.
Was it mostly Rain people, or people came from
No,
outside?
well, the country people.
The country.
Country people. You see Mervyn Cone on this side, have you seen this? When you come in on this side, they had a hitching post.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we always had a car, but our neighbor had a buggy, and that fascinated me. My 2 oldest brothers had buggies. They would go court their girls, you know, buggies. But my dad had a car, you know, we had a car. And I just, you know, that kind of fascinated me. But I told my mother, I said, there's not much room in that buggy, but I sure would like to, we'd call the old man Uncle Frank. I said, I sure would like Uncle Frank to ride me in his buggy. Well, Mama asked him, she says, you know, when the wife is going to go with you, or one, because he had 2 or 3 girls, he said, she said, I wish you would get Viola to go. And honey, he did. He took me, and we hitched the wagon. And when I tell that to people, that I came by wagon there and hitched it on the hitching post, I said, oh yes, and I showed her where the hitching post was. It
That's
was
exciting.
fun. And then when they had what was it? About 15, 20 years ago, they had a kind of a city thing, you know, and they called me to see if I had pictures of my grandfather in his syrup mill, because he was the first one. And I said, no, they don't have any pictures. I said, I'm sorry, you know. And Mabel said, had I thought it, I had an aunt that had a daughter that was kind of, well, anyway, I'm not going to say. She says, why don't you ask her? Because her mother was the youngest. And she said, she may have some pictures. And way after, my sister talked to her later on, and she says, I did. Y'all should have called me. And I was so upset. But, you know, they had moved away, and I didn't know them that well. So, you know. I said, well, why didn't you? She said, well, they didn't ask me. She said, I would have had they asked me, you know.
So was it common? Did most people have buggies? Was it rare to have a car in the 40s?
When I was little, yes. And like I said, my two oldest brothers, I had 5 brothers older than me. My 2 oldest brothers had buggies.
And so you're the youngest of 7, right?
Oh, no.
No?
Oh, no. I have 5 brothers, and I have 1 sister. But I'm the only one that stayed here. Everybody else left.
And they mostly.
And I did marry a Rain man.
You did? How did you meet him?
At a barn dance.
At a bar. Here in Rain?
Yeah.
Was he just traveling through, or?
No. He had family that lived here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where was he from?
The country, which is near Lafayette, is between Lafayette and there's 2 little towns. There's 2 towns. Yeah. I would say mostly Lafayette Parish is where he lived. You know.
Okay. All right. And do you think was it about the same when the boys came home from war in the 50s and the 60s? Was it still like people would come in from town every Saturday and walk through the streets, or did it change?
It kind of changed after that. Yes. They still had the little powwows, you know, but it wasn't as defined as, you know,
as the 40s.
Because they had, I don't know what you call them, but they had benches, and where they blocked the street. You couldn't go through with a car. You had to walk it, you know. And when I said they had a lot of people, have you ever been to a bazaar?
No.
No. Well, that's what it reminded me of, you know.
And just people walking through the streets, shopping, socializing.
Socializing, yes.
In the 50s, it just became less prevalent. You think because people came home from the war, they wanted to settle down?
Yeah, you're right there. They wanted to go to a bigger town where they could get a better job. Rain is sort of just workman, you know, just agricultural work. You know, there's no. They have oil wells not too far now, but then they didn't. You know.
Okay, that's interesting. So when people came home from the war, they moved to a bigger town.
Yeah, and you see, my brothers, they moved to Lake Charles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot going on in Lake
My
Charles.
oldest brother moved to Lake Charles. My 2 oldest brothers, and when the other 3 came out of the service, they stayed in Lake Charles. And a lot of my family, that's what.
They moved to Lake Charles.
Moved to Lake Charles because they had refineries and they had, you know.
More job opportunities. Okay. Where did your family shop? When they needed like groceries, where did they shop? And then where did they shop when they needed like clothes and things for the
Well,
house?
clothes, it was Mervyn Collins.
Okay.
That was clothes. But you know what? They raised their own rice, and I've seen where my mama had 500 chickens, you know, and they may have had 10 hogs. I mean, we had fresh meat all the time,
Right.
you know, and vegetable, she wouldn't stop canning until she had 500 quarts.
Wow. So you didn't really go to the grocery store?
No, we didn't have to, you know,
Right.
for flour, you know, cornmeal, or for things, yeah. And Mrs. Kahn, the old Mrs. Kahn, the first Mrs. Kahn, Mr. Belain told me that. Mr. Belain, when Mr. Belain found out that I was Willie Moore's daughter, he said, "Oh, I used to go buy my syrup for the year with Mr. Moore." I said, "Yeah, he sure did, you know."
From Mr. Khan?
But yes.
Oh, wow.
Well, no, he came to my grandfather's
Oh, okay.
farm and buy his syrup. You know?
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, he was fascinated about that. You know, he said,
So
"I
the
can't
Khans
believe-"
bought their food from your grandfather?
No. The Khans, I think they had a grocery store at one time. I know they did. I don't remember it too well, but I know they did. You know, but my grandfather, I was told, would come. Well, Mr. Belain told me that would come about once every 2 weeks or 3 weeks by wagon to buy his provisions for that period of time. He says, but Mrs. Kong would make sure, my daddy wasn't the only one, because a little bit further down, going north, there was a lot of Germans, settlers from World War I, and they shopped there too.
Oh, okay.
And she would never let them leave before they ate. They had to eat lunch before they left.
So there was a place to eat in Mervanka?
No, she would cook for them.
Oh, okay.
She would cook for them.
Oh.
Now, Mr. Belain, my daddy never told me that. Mr. Belain is the one who told me that.
Oh, okay.
When he found out, I'm telling you, we talked and talked and talked. He was so happy to be able to tell me all of this. And I'm glad he did, you know.
Yeah, that's neat. Okay. So what was there to do in Rain for entertainment? You said y'all had barn dances?
Barn dances. Oh,
That's
yeah.
neat. What, so
We had
was
two.
it in a real barn?
No. It was, you know. But now they had a lot of barn dances in the country. Country didn't always come to town then. You know.
Right. So it would just be held at like someone's house?
Someone's house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what kind of music? Was it country music or Cajun?
Yes.
Cajun music? Another question they have is, how has the downtown area changed?
There ain't as many cars as there used to be.
So you're saying people mostly have migrated to bigger cities, Lafayette, Lake Charles?
I would say so. Oh, Saturday night, like I said, you couldn't pass on Main Street at all.
What was going on at Mervyn Kind at that time?
They were open.
They stayed open late?
Oh yeah, they stayed open till 10 o'clock.
Did they sell like refreshments or anything like that?
I really don't know. I don't think so, but I'm not too sure. But they had the grocery store, they had, you know, the clothing store,